Some moments change everything. A simple decision to turn left instead of right. A phone call answered at just the right time. A child's cry heard above the noise of a busy parking lot. These are the moments that split our lives into before and after, and we never see them coming. For Gloria Matthews, a 52-year-old maid working 3 jobs to keep a roof over her family's head, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday evening in October when she was already running late for her night shift. She almost didn't stop. She almost kept walking, exhausted and cold, her mind focused on getting to work on time. But something made her pause. Something made her turn around. And in that single heartbeat of a decision, she stepped into a story that would shake the foundations of power, privilege, and everything she thought she knew about the world. The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday evening, turning the grocery store parking lot into a maze of puddles and reflections. Gloria Matthews hurried across the wet asphalt, her worn sneakers splashing through water that soaked her socks. She clutched 2 plastic bags against her chest, trying to protect the bread and eggs she had picked up on her way to her evening shift at the Grandview Hotel downtown. The bags from the dollar store were thin and already stretching under the weight of her purchases. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Gloria didn't need to check it to know it was her daughter, Keisha, probably asking when she would be home. The answer was the same as always. Late. Too late. After the hotel shift ended at 11, she still had to catch 2 buses back to their neighborhood on the south side, and she wouldn't walk through their apartment door until well past midnight. Then, she would be up again at 5 in the morning to clean offices in the financial district before heading to her afternoon job cleaning houses in the suburbs. This was her life. This had been her life for the past 8 years, ever since her husband Marcus had died suddenly, from a heart attack, leaving her with 2 teenage kids and a mountain of medical bills. 3 jobs, 70 hours a week. Every day a battle to stay afloat, to keep the lights on, to put food on the table. Gloria was tired down to her bones, a deep exhaustion that sleep never quite touched anymore. She was halfway across the parking lot when she heard it, a sound that cut through the rain and the rumble of traffic from the main road. A child crying. Gloria stopped walking. She turned her head, water dripping from the edge of her hood, and listened. There it was again. Not just crying, but the kind of desperate sobbing that came from real fear. The kind of sound that made something clench tight in her chest because she had heard it before from her own children when they were small and scared. She scanned the parking lot. Most of the cars were empty, their windows fogged with condensation. The few people she could see were hurrying toward the store entrance, heads down against the weather. Nobody else seemed to have heard the crying. Gloria glanced at her watch. She had 15 minutes to catch the bus that would get her to work on time. If she missed it, the next one wouldn't come for another half hour, and she would be late. Being late meant a write-up from her supervisor, Mr. Peterson, who seemed to take personal pleasure in documenting every minor infraction. 3 write-ups, and she would lose the job. She couldn't afford to lose the job. But the crying continued, and it was getting more frantic. Gloria muttered a prayer under her breath and changed direction, moving between the rows of parked cars. The sound was coming from somewhere near the back of the lot, away from the store lights. As she got closer, she could make out words between the sobs. "Mommy, I want my mommy." Then she saw her. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old, standing next to a black SUV. She wore a white dress that was now soaked through and clinging to her small frame, and her dark curly hair was plastered to her face. She was shivering violently, her arms wrapped around herself, and tears streamed down her cheeks mixing with the rain. Gloria's heart twisted. She hurried over and crouched down, setting her grocery bags on the wet ground. Baby, it's okay," she said softly, trying to make her voice calm and reassuring even though alarm bells were ringing in her head. A child this young, alone in a parking lot in the rain, crying for her mother. This was wrong. This was very wrong. The little girl's eyes went wide when she saw Gloria. For a moment she seemed about to run, but then a fresh wave of sobs shook her small body, and she just stood there, trembling and crying. "It's okay, sweetie. I'm not going to hurt you," Gloria said, pulling her hood back so the child could see her face clearly. "My name is Gloria. What's your name?" The girl hiccuped and wiped at her eyes with small fists. "S. Sophie. she managed between sobs. That's a beautiful name. Sophie, where's your mommy? I don't know. Fresh tears spilled down Sophie's face. We were shopping, and then I saw the toy store, and I walked over, but then I couldn't find her, and I've been looking, and she's not here. Gloria felt her stomach drop. She looked around the parking lot again, more carefully this time, searching for any sign of a frantic parent searching for their lost child. She saw nothing. The few people visible were going about their business, unaware of the drama unfolding in the back corner of the lot. Okay. How long have you been out here, honey? Sophie shook her head. I don't know. A long time. I'm cold. Gloria didn't hesitate. She shrugged out of her coat, not caring that she was now getting soaked herself, and wrapped it around the little girl's shoulders. The coat was huge on Sophie, hanging down past her knees, but it was warm and dry on the inside. Sophie pulled it tight around herself. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome, baby. Gloria's mind was racing. She needed to get this child inside.
Everything will be all right, my dear.
She needed to find security.
We just have to be strong
call the police,
together.
Locate Sophie's parents. But something was nagging at her, something that didn't add up. She looked at the little girl more carefully. Sophie's white dress, though now wet and dirty, was clearly expensive. Gloria knew quality when she saw it after years of cleaning rich people's houses. The fabric was fine, the stitching perfect. The child's shoes were designer brand, the kind that cost more than Gloria made in a week. And there was something else. Around Sophie's neck, barely visible under the collar of the dress, was a delicate gold necklace with a pendant. This was not a child from the kind of neighborhood where kids got lost in parking lots. This was a child from money. Serious money. Sophie, do you know your mommy's phone number? Gloria asked. Sophie nodded. Uh-huh. It's 555-0147. Gloria pulled out her phone, but her hands were shaking from the cold, and her fingers were wet. She fumbled with the screen, trying to dial. The phone slipped, and she nearly dropped it before managing to enter the number. She hit call, and waited, her heart pounding. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it went to voicemail. Hello, this is Amanda Whitmore. I'm unable to take your call right now. Please leave a message. Amanda Whitmore. The name meant nothing to Gloria, but the voice on the recording was cultured, educated, the kind of voice that belonged to someone who had never worried about money a day in her life. Gloria waited for the beep. Hello, Ms. Whitmore. My name is Gloria Matthews. I'm calling because I found your daughter Sophie in the parking lot of Henderson's Grocery on 5th Street. She's safe, but she's cold and scared and looking for you. Please call me back at this number as soon as you get this message. She hung up and looked down at Sophie, who was watching her with wide, hopeful eyes. Is my mommy coming? I called her baby. I'm sure she'll call back very soon. But right now, we need to get you inside where it's warm and dry, okay? Sophie nodded and reached up to take Gloria's hand. Her little fingers were like ice. Gloria picked up her grocery bags with her free hand and started walking back toward the store, the child pressed close against her side. As they walked, Gloria's mind was churning with questions. How had Sophie ended up alone in that parking lot? Where was her mother? Why hadn't anyone from the store noticed a small child wandering around outside in the rain? And why did Gloria have this growing feeling in her gut that something about this situation was deeply, terribly wrong? They reached the store entrance and pushed through the automatic doors into the bright fluorescent lights and dry warmth. Water dripped from both of them onto the tiled floor. A teenager manning a register looked up, and his eyes widened at the sight of them. I need to speak to security, Gloria said firmly. Right now. The teenager nodded and grabbed a phone, speaking quickly into it. Within a minute, a heavy-set man in a security uniform came hurrying over. His name tag read Dave Mitchell. What's going on? He asked, looking between Gloria and Sophie with confusion. I found this little girl outside in the parking lot, Gloria explained. She's lost and looking for her mother. I called the number she gave me, but got voicemail. She says her name is Sophie and her mother is Amanda Whitmore. Dave's expression changed immediately. His eyes went wide and the color drained from his face. Sophie Whitmore, he repeated. That's what she told me. Dave stared at Sophie for a long moment, and Gloria saw something that looked like panic flicker across his features. Then, he seemed to shake himself. Come with me, he said quickly. Both of you. We need to go to the security office right now. Something about his tone sent a chill down Gloria's spine. She tightened her grip on Sophie's hand and followed Dave through the store. Shoppers turned to stare at them as they passed, at the soaking wet woman and child being escorted by security. Gloria could feel her face burning with embarrassment, but she kept her head up and focused on keeping Sophie calm. They went through a door marked Employees Only and down a narrow hallway to a small office filled with security monitors. Dave gestured for them to sit in the 2 chairs against the wall, then picked up a phone with shaking hands. "This is Mitchell at Henderson's on 5th, he said into the phone, his voice tight. "I need you to listen very carefully. We have a situation. Sophie Whitmore is here." "Yes, that's Sophie Whitmore. She was found in the parking lot by a customer." "No, I don't know how long she was out there. Just get someone here immediately." He hung up and turned to look at Gloria and Sophie, and there was fear in his eyes now. Real fear. "Who did you just call?" Gloria asked, her protective instincts kicking in. She moved slightly to put herself between Dave and Sophie. "The Whitmore security team," Dave said. "They need to know she's safe." "Security team? What are you talking about?" Before Dave could answer, Gloria's phone rang. She pulled it out and saw an unknown number on the screen. She answered it. "Hello. This is Amanda Whitmore." The voice was sharp, cold, nothing like the pleasant recording on the voicemail. "You have my daughter." "Yes, I found her in the parking lot. She was alone and crying. I brought her inside to keep her safe." There was a pause. Then Amanda spoke again, and her voice was different now, shaking with what might have been relief or might have been something else. "Thank God. Is she hurt?" Gloria looked at Sophie, who was watching her anxiously. "No, she's fine. Just cold and scared." "Where are you?" "We're at Henderson's grocery." "I know where you are. I'm sending someone to pick her up immediately. Stay exactly where you are. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. Do you understand?" The commanding tone rubbed Gloria the wrong way. "Ma'am, I think maybe I should call the police. Your daughter was alone in a parking lot in the rain. That's not okay. Do not call the police." Amanda's voice was
It's going to
hard
be
as steel
okay,
now.
sweetheart.
"This is a private family matter. My security team will handle it. If you call the police, you will regret it." Gloria bristled. "Are you threatening me? I was trying to help your child." "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you how things are going to proceed. Stay where you are. Someone will be there in 5 minutes." The line went dead. Gloria stared at her phone, anger and confusion warring inside her. Who was this woman? What kind of mother talked like that when their child had been found after being lost? She looked at Dave, who was watching her with that same fearful expression. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Who are the Whitmores?" Dave swallowed hard. "You really don't know?" "No, I really don't." "Who are they?" "Richard Whitmore," Dave said quietly. "Sophie's father. He owns Whitmore Industries. Hotels, real estate, technology companies. He's worth something like $40 billion. He's one of the richest men in the country." Gloria felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. $40 billion. She had found a billionaire's daughter in a parking lot. No wonder everyone was so scared. No wonder Amanda Whitmore had sounded so cold and commanding on the phone. She looked down at Sophie, who was huddled in Gloria's coat, watching the security monitors with tired eyes. She looked like any other scared little girl. But she wasn't. She was a child from a world Gloria couldn't even imagine, a world of private security teams and unlimited money and parents who could make threats over the phone and expect them to be taken seriously. What had Gloria gotten herself into? Her phone buzzed with a text message. She looked at the screen, and her heart sank. It was from Keisha. "Mom, where are you? You said you'd be home by midnight. It's 12:30. Gloria had missed her shift at the hotel. She had missed the 5 minutes Amanda Whitmore had promised stretched into 10, then 15. Gloria sat in the cramped security office with Sophie curled up beside her, the little girl's head resting against her arm. Dave Mitchell kept pacing back and forth, checking his phone, glancing at the monitors, his nervousness filling the small space like smoke. Gloria tried calling the hotel to explain why she had missed her shift, but Mr. Peterson didn't answer. She left a voicemail that she knew wouldn't matter. 3 strikes, and you're out. That was the policy. This was her second. She couldn't afford a third, and she definitely couldn't afford to lose this job. The hotel paid better than her other 2 positions combined. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Keisha. Mom, seriously, where are you? Marcus is worried too. Gloria typed back with cold fingers. Something came up. I'm okay. We'll explain when I get home. Love you both. She didn't know how to explain any of this. She didn't understand it herself yet. Sophie stirred beside her, looking up with sleepy eyes. I'm hungry, she said softly. Gloria's heart squeezed. Of course she was hungry. Who knew when the poor child had last eaten? She looked at Dave. Is there a vending machine or something? She needs food. Dave nodded quickly, seeming grateful for something to do. Yeah, there's one down the hall. I'll grab something. He hurried out of the office. Gloria looked down at Sophie and brushed a strand of still damp hair away from her face. Your parents will be here soon, sweetie. I'm sure they're very worried about you. Sophie's expression clouded over. She picked at the edge of Gloria's coat, not meeting her eyes. Mommy was mad at me, she said quietly. Mad at you? What? I wasn't supposed to walk away. She told me to stay right next to her while she was on the phone. But I saw the toy store, and I just wanted to look at the dolls in the window for a minute. I didn't mean to get lost. Gloria felt anger flare hot in her chest. Amanda Whitmore had been on the phone while shopping with her small daughter. She had been so distracted that she hadn't noticed when Sophie wandered off. And instead of admitting that, instead of being grateful that someone had found her child safe, she had made threats over the phone. It's not your fault, baby, Gloria said firmly. You're just a little girl. The grown-ups should have been watching you better. Sophie looked up at her with those big, trusting eyes. Are you going to stay with me until Mommy gets here? Of course I am. I'm not going anywhere. Dave returned with an armful of snacks from the vending machine, chips and cookies and a bottle of juice. Sophie took the juice gratefully and sipped it while nibbling on cookies. Some color came back into her cheeks. More time passed. 20 minutes. 25. Gloria checked her watch compulsively. Every minute that ticked by was another minute closer to the consequences she would face. Lost job. Lost income. Rent due in a week. Her kids depending on her. The weight of it pressed down on her shoulders. Then, at exactly 32 minutes after Amanda's phone call, Gloria heard voices in the hallway outside the security office. Sharp voices. Authoritative voices. The door swung open, and 3 people entered in a rush of expensive perfume and cold authority. The first was a woman in her late 30s, tall and blonde, wearing a tailored pantsuit that probably cost more than Gloria's monthly rent. Her makeup was perfect, her jewelry understated but clearly expensive, and her face was set in an expression of controlled fury. This had to be Amanda Whitmore. Behind her came 2 men in dark suits who were clearly security, their eyes constantly scanning the small office, their bodies positioned protectively around Amanda. They both had earpieces and the kind of alertness that came from serious training. Amanda's eyes locked onto Sophie immediately. Sophie. She rushed forward and scooped the little girl up into her arms, holding her tight. For a moment, genuine emotion cracked through her icy exterior. Her eyes closed, and her face crumpled with relief. Oh, thank God. Thank God you're safe. Sophie clung to her mother, crying again, and for those few seconds Gloria felt some of her anger fade. Whatever else was true, Amanda Whitmore loved her daughter. That much was clear. But then, Amanda's eyes opened and found Gloria, and the warmth vanished instantly. She set Sophie down but kept one hand on her daughter's shoulder. You, she said to Gloria. You're the one who found her. Gloria stood up, refusing to be intimidated despite the fact that she was soaking wet, exhausted, and facing down 3 people who clearly belonged to a different world entirely. Yes, my name is Gloria Matthews. I found Sophie in the parking lot, crying and alone in the rain. Amanda's jaw tightened. How long was she out there? I don't know. She said she'd been looking for you for a long time. One of the security men stepped forward. We need to understand exactly what happened here. Where precisely did you find the child? Gloria pointed toward the parking lot visible through the window. Back corner, near a black SUV. She was standing in the rain, crying. The security man exchanged a glance with his partner. That's on the other side of the lot from where Ms. Whitmore's vehicle was parked. Amanda's face went pale. She crossed the entire parking lot alone? Apparently, Gloria said, letting some of her own anger seep into her voice. While you were on the phone, maybe? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Amanda's eyes went cold. Excuse me. Sophie told me you were on the phone when she wandered off. She said she just wanted to look at dolls in a toy store window for a minute. How dare you? Amanda's voice was quiet but shaking with rage. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what our life is like, what security concerns we deal with every single day. I know a scared little girl was alone in a parking lot in the rain. Gloria shot back. I know I almost didn't stop because I was late for work. I know that if I hadn't heard her crying, she might still be out there. One of the security men put a hand on Amanda's arm. Ms. Whitmore, perhaps we should continue this conversation elsewhere. But Amanda shook him off. She was staring at Gloria with an expression that was hard to read. Anger, yes, but something else too. Something that might have been guilt or shame. You're right, she said finally, and the admission seemed to cost her. You're absolutely right. I was on the phone. I was distracted, and my daughter could have been taken or hurt because of it. She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for keeping her safe. Gloria hadn't expected that. She nodded slowly. You're welcome. Amanda reached into her designer purse and pulled out a checkbook. I want to compensate you for your time and trouble. What's a reasonable amount? 5,000. 10. Gloria felt like she'd been slapped. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money. Just name your price. I said I don't want your money. Gloria's voice was hard now. I didn't help your daughter because I expected to get paid for it. I helped her because she was a scared child who needed help. That's what decent people do. Amanda stared at her, the checkbook still in her hand, clearly not knowing how to process this response. People in her world probably always took the money. Dave Mitchell, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, cleared his throat nervously. Ms. Whitmore, there's the matter of the security footage. We have cameras covering the parking lot. I've already pulled the relevant files. Amanda turned to him sharply. I want all of that footage. Every second from the time we arrived until now. And I want it deleted from your servers. Dave nodded quickly. Of course. I'll get that arranged right away. Gloria frowned. Wait, why would you delete it? Shouldn't you keep it in case something happened? This is a family matter, Amanda said coldly. The footage is private property, and we're within our rights to have it removed from the store's system. But what if someone was watching Sophie? What if someone was following her? Gloria pressed. Wouldn't you want to know? The two security men exchanged another look. One of them spoke up. That's actually a valid concern, Ms. Whitmore. We should review the footage carefully before making any decisions about disposal. Amanda looked like she wanted to argue, but after a moment, she gave a tight nod. Fine, review it. But I want the results tonight, and then I want it contained. Gloria was starting to get a very bad feeling about all of this. There was something strange happening here, something beyond a mother's embarrassment about losing track of her child. The security team was too nervous. Amanda was too controlling. And the way they talked about containing the footage made Gloria's skin crawl. She thought about Sophie standing alone in that parking lot, crying for her mother. She thought about how the little girl had said her mother was mad at her. And she thought about the way Amanda was now holding Sophie almost too tight, as if she was afraid the child might disappear again. Ms. Whitmore, Gloria said carefully, I don't mean to pry into your family business, but is Sophie safe? Is there someone I should be worried about? Amanda's expression flickered, something raw and afraid passing across her face before the mask slammed back down. That's not your concern. I made it my concern when I wrapped my coat around your daughter and brought her inside from the rain, Gloria said firmly. If that child is in danger, I need to know. She's not in danger. Not anymore. Not now that we have her back. Not anymore? Gloria repeated. What does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. Amanda turned to the security men. We're done here. Get Sophie to the car. I want to be home in 20 minutes. One of the men moved forward to take Sophie's hand, but the little girl pulled away and ran back to Gloria, wrapping her arms around Gloria's waist in a tight hug. Thank you, Miss Gloria, she said, her voice muffled against Gloria's wet shirt. Thank you for being nice to me. Gloria hugged her back, her throat tight. You take care of yourself, baby. You be safe, okay? Sophie nodded and reluctantly let the security guard take her hand and lead her toward the door. Amanda followed, but she paused in the doorway and turned back to Gloria. I meant what I said about compensation, she said. You did a good thing today. Let me repay you for it. I don't want anything from you, Gloria said quietly. Then, what do you want? Gloria looked her straight in the eye. I want to know that little girl is going to be okay. That's all I want. Amanda held her gaze for a long moment. Then, without another word, she turned and left, her heels clicking down the hallway. Dave Mitchell let out a long breath, like he'd been holding it the entire time. Holy hell, he muttered. That was intense. Gloria sank back into her chair, suddenly, aware of how exhausted she was. Her clothes were still damp, her feet ached, and her head was spinning. What just happened? She said, more to herself than to Dave. You just met the Whitmore family, Dave said. Welcome to How the Other Half Lives. Gloria checked her phone. It was almost 1 a.m. Her shift at the hotel had ended an hour ago. She had missed the entire thing. She pulled up Mr. Peterson's number and tried calling again, but it went straight to voicemail again. I need to get home, she said, standing up. Her grocery bags were still sitting in the corner where she'd set them down, the bread probably squashed, the eggs probably broken. She picked them up anyway and headed for the door. Hey, Dave called after her. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Not everyone would have stopped. Gloria nodded, but didn't respond. She was too tired for philosophy. She left through the store's front entrance and stood under the overhang, looking out at the rain that was finally starting to ease. The parking lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars scattered across the wet asphalt. Somewhere out there, Sophie Whitmore was being driven home in what was probably a luxury car, surrounded by security, heading back to her billionaire father and her life of privilege. And Gloria was standing in the rain with broken eggs and squashed bread, wondering how she was going to explain to Mr. Peterson why she had missed her shift, wondering how she was going to pay rent if she lost this job, wondering what her kids would say when she finally made it home at 2 a.m. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Sophie's face. She saw that little girl standing alone in the rain, crying and scared. And she knew, deep in her bones, that she would make the same choice again, even knowing what it might cost her, even knowing she might lose everything. Because that's what you did. When you saw a child in trouble, you helped. That was just basic human decency, no matter what world you came from or how much money you had in the bank. Gloria pulled out her phone and called for a rideshare. She couldn't afford it, not really, but she was too tired to deal with buses tonight. While she waited for the car to arrive, she noticed something on the ground near her feet. It must have fallen out when she was getting her phone. It was a small piece of paper, folded in half. Gloria picked it up and unfolded it, squinting at the handwriting in the dim light from the store. The note was brief. Gloria Matthews. Keep your phone on. Someone will be in touch. There was no signature, no other information. Just those 2 sentences in neat, precise handwriting. Gloria felt a chill that had nothing to do with her wet clothes. She looked around the parking lot, suddenly, aware of how exposed she was standing there under the lights. Was someone watching her right now? Had someone slipped this note into her things while she was in the security office? Her rideshare arrived, a beat-up Honda with a tired-looking driver who didn't ask questions. Gloria climbed into the back seat and gave her address, then sat in silence as they pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward her neighborhood. She kept thinking about Amanda Whitmore's face when she'd said, "Not anymore." She kept thinking about the way the security team had tensed up when Gloria mentioned reviewing the parking lot footage. She kept thinking about Sophie's words, "Mommy was mad at me." There was more to this story, much more. And somehow, Gloria had just stumbled into the middle of it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for what you did tonight. You may not understand yet why it matters so much, but it does. Keep this number. You may need it." Gloria stared at the message, her heart pounding. She typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately, "A friend. Stay safe, Gloria Matthews." Then, nothing more. Gloria looked out the window at the city lights sliding past. Rain streaked the glass, turning everything into blurred shapes and colors. Somewhere out there in the night, Sophie Whitmore was with her family. Somewhere out there, people were watching and waiting and sending cryptic text messages. And Gloria, who just wanted to work her 3 jobs and take car. Gloria's apartment was small and cluttered, but it was clean. She had always been proud of that. Even working 3 jobs, even being exhausted down to her bones, she made sure their home was clean. It was one of the few things she could still control in a life that often felt like it was spinning away from her. Keisha was sitting at the kitchen table when Gloria walked in, her laptop open in front of her, textbooks spread across the surface. At 19, she looked so much like her father it sometimes made Gloria's heart ache. Same warm brown eyes, same strong jawline, same expression of quiet determination when she was focused on something. Marcus Jr., 17, was sprawled on the couch with his phone, but he sat up quickly when he heard the door. "Mom, where were you?" "We were worried sick." Gloria set her grocery bags down on the counter and pulled off her damp coat. "I'm sorry, babies. Something happened on my way to work. Come sit down and I'll explain." They gathered around the kitchen table, and Gloria told them about Sophie, about finding her in the parking lot, about the phone calls and the security team, about Amanda Whitmore and the strange notes and text messages. She left out the part about probably losing her job at the hotel. They didn't need that worry on top of everything else. Keisha's eyes went wide. "Mom, you found a billionaire's kid? Do you know who Richard Whitmore is?" "The security guard told me. Some rich businessman." "Some rich businessman?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, he's like the richest man in the state. He owns half the buildings downtown. There was a whole thing in the news a few months ago about one of his companies getting sued for something." Keisha was already typing on her laptop, pulling up news articles. "Here, look at this. Richard Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Industries. Net worth estimated at $42 billion. He's married to Amanda Whitmore. They have one daughter, Sophie, age 6. She scrolled down. "Oh man, Mom, look at this." She turned the laptop around so Gloria could see the screen. There was a photo of Richard Whitmore at some kind of gala event, wearing a tuxedo, a beautiful woman on his arm. Amanda Whitmore looked different in the photo than she had in the security office. More relaxed, almost happy. And, beside them, dressed in a little pink gown, was Sophie, smiling shyly at the camera. But what caught Gloria's attention was the headline above the photo: "Whitmore family under investigation for campaign finance violations." Gloria read the article quickly. It detailed allegations that Richard Whitmore had funneled illegal contributions to several political candidates through shell companies. There were quotes from prosecutors saying they were building a case. Quotes from Whitmore's lawyers denying everything. The article was from 6 months ago. "Keep scrolling," Keisha said. "There's more." More articles appeared on the screen. Whitmore Industries accused of labor violations. Former employee claims retaliation after reporting safety concerns. Environmental groups target Whitmore development project. And then, from just 3 weeks ago, Sophie Whitmore, daughter of billionaire Richard Whitmore, briefly missing from school. Family claims miscommunication. Gloria's blood ran cold. Sophie went missing before? Marcus leaned over her shoulder to read. Says she was missing from her private school for about 2 hours. The family said it was a mix-up with the pickup schedule, but some parents at the school were saying the security was really freaked out. One parent told the reporter it looked like a potential kidnapping situation. Gloria thought about Amanda's reaction in the security office. The way she had immediately wanted to delete the parking lot footage. The way the security team had been so tense. The cryptic note, and the text message from an unknown number. "Mom," Keisha said quietly, "I think you might have stepped into something dangerous." Gloria wanted to disagree. She wanted to say it was just a misunderstanding, just a mother who got distracted while shopping and lost track of her daughter. But the evidence was piling up against that simple explanation. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Check your bank account." Gloria frowned and pulled up her banking app, entering her password with fingers that had started to shake. The screen loaded, showing her checking account balance. She blinked, looked again, refreshed the page. The number didn't change. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Mom? What is it?" Marcus moved to look at her phone, and his eyes went wide. "Is that real? That can't be real." Gloria's checking account, which had contained exactly $247 that morning, now showed a balance of $10,247. Someone had deposited $10,000 into her account. Her phone rang, making her jump. The same unknown number that had been texting her. With shaking hands, she answered. "Hello, Ms. Matthews." The voice was male, calm, professional. "My name is Robert Chun. I work for the Whitmore family. Please don't hang up." You put money in my account, Gloria said. Her voice came out hoarse. Consider it a thank you for your help tonight. Ms. Whitmore wanted to ensure you were compensated for your time and trouble. I told her I didn't want her money. I understand. But the deposit has been made regardless. Use it however you see fit. Pay bills, take a vacation, help your children with school. It's yours. Gloria's mind was racing. $10,000 could change everything. It could catch up all her past due notices. It could fix the car. It could put a real dent in Marcus's college fund that she'd been trying to rebuild since her husband died. But accepting it felt wrong somehow. Like she was being bought. Like she was being silenced. Why are you doing this? She asked. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Robert Chin spoke again, his voice was lower, more cautious. Ms. Matthews, may I speak candidly with you? Please do. The Whitmore family is under a great deal of scrutiny right now from several different quarters. Business rivals, prosecutors, the media, and there are concerns that someone may be targeting them more directly. Targeting Sophie specifically. Gloria felt her stomach clench. You think someone was trying to kidnap her? We don't know for certain. But the incident 3 weeks ago at her school was not a simple miscommunication as the family claimed publicly. Someone gained access to the school grounds and attempted to take Sophie from the playground. The security team intercepted them, but the individual escaped. Oh my God. Gloria looked at her kids, who were watching her with growing alarm. Have you gone to the police? The family has chosen to handle this matter privately. Mr. Whitmore doesn't trust law enforcement, particularly given the current investigations into his business practices. He believes someone within the police department may be leaking information to his enemies. So what? He's just going to let someone keep trying to take his daughter? He's hired the best security team money can buy, and he's making certain choices to keep Sophie safe. But tonight was a failure of that security. Sophie managed to wander off while Ms. Whitmore was distracted during what should have been a simple shopping trip. If you hadn't found her. He trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. Gloria closed her eyes, seeing again that little girl standing alone in the rain. What do you want from me, Mr. Chun? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I simply wanted you to understand the full picture, and to thank you properly for what you did. $10,000 is a small price to pay for a child's safety. And if I go to the media? If I tell them about tonight? Another pause. Then, I would ask you not to do that. Not for our sake, but for Sophie's. The more attention this situation gets, the more danger that child is in. The people who may be targeting the Whitmore family would love to know that their security has exploitable weaknesses. Information like that could get Sophie killed. Gloria felt sick. This is insane. That little girl needs protection. Real protection. From police, from the FBI, not just from private security guards. I agree with you, Ms. Matthews. Truly I do. But I don't make the decisions for the Whitmore family. I simply carry them out. All I can do is ask you to please, for Sophie's sake, keep what happened tonight quiet. Are you threatening me? No. I'm appealing to the same compassion that made you stop in that parking lot tonight, when you could have walked away. You cared about that child's well-being then. I'm asking you to care about it now. Gloria wanted to argue. She wanted to say this was wrong, that a child's safety shouldn't be left to the whims of billionaire parents who didn't trust anyone. But she thought about Sophie's face, about those trusting eyes, and she felt trapped. I need to think about this, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. And Ms. Matthews? The money is yours regardless of what you decide. Consider it payment for services rendered, nothing more. You saved a child tonight. You deserve to be compensated for that. He hung up before she could respond. Gloria set her phone down on the table and looked at her children. Keisha and Marcus were staring at her with a mixture of worry and confusion. Mom, what are you going to do? Keisha asked softly. I don't know, baby. I honest to God don't know. Marcus picked up Gloria's phone and looked at the bank balance again. That's a lot of money, Mom. That could help us with so much. I know, but it feels dirty, doesn't it? Keisha said, like they're buying your silence. Maybe they are, Gloria admitted. Or maybe they really are just trying to say thank you. I can't tell anymore. She stood up and walked to the small window that looked out over their neighborhood. The rain had stopped completely now. The streets were wet and shining under the streetlights. A few people were still out, late-night workers heading home, teenagers hanging on the corner despite the hour. This was her world. A world where people struggled to get by, where every dollar mattered, where $10,000 was an unimaginable fortune that could change everything. But it was an honest world, for the most part. People here didn't play games with money and power and secret security teams. The Whitmore world was different. It was a world Gloria didn't understand and wasn't sure she wanted to understand. But she had crossed into it tonight, and now she was caught between two realities that shouldn't have been able to touch. Her phone buzzed again. Not a text this time, but an email. From Mr. Peterson at the hotel. Gloria opened it with a sinking feeling in her stomach. Ms. Matthews, your absence tonight without proper notification constitutes a violation of company policy. This is your second documented violation. One more, and we will be forced to terminate your employment. Please see me first thing tomorrow morning to discuss this matter. Derek Peterson, night shift supervisor. There it was. The consequences of her choice to help Sophie. She was one violation away from losing the job that kept her family afloat. But at least she had $10,000 in her bank account now. Blood money, maybe. Conscience money. Whatever it was, it meant she could survive losing the hotel job if it came to that. Except that wasn't the point, was it? The point was that a little girl was in danger, and Gloria was the only person outside the Whitmore family who knew about it. The only person who could make noise, who could force the authorities to get involved, who could maybe actually keep Sophie safe. But doing that would mean going up against one of the richest, most powerful families in the state. It would mean making enemies of people who could destroy her life with a phone call. It would mean risking everything for a child she didn't know, a child who came from a world so different from her own they might as well have been from different planets. Gloria pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window and closed her eyes. What would your father do? She whispered, asking Marcus, but also asking herself. Marcus Sr. had been a good man, a strong man, the kind of man who always tried to do the right thing even when it cost him. When he saw injustice, he spoke up. When he saw someone in need, he helped. It had made their life harder sometimes. He had lost jobs for standing up to bosses who were mistreating workers. He had gotten into confrontations with neighbors who were doing wrong. But he had always been able to look at himself in the mirror. Gloria knew what he would say about this situation. He would say you don't turn away from a child in danger. You don't let evil happen just because fighting it is hard or scary or expensive. You stand up. You speak out. You do what's right. But Marcus wasn't here anymore. He had died 8 years ago and left Gloria alone with 2 kids to raise and bills to pay and no room for heroic gestures that could get them all hurt. She turned back to face her children. I need to sleep on this, she said. It's late, and I'm exhausted, and I can't think straight anymore. We'll figure it out in the morning. Keisha stood and hugged her mother tight. Whatever you decide, Mom, we support you. You know that, right? Marcus joined the hug, wrapping his long arms around both of them. We're a team, he said. Just like Dad always said. The Matthews family takes care of its own and does right by others. That's who we are. Gloria felt tears stinging her eyes. When did you two get so wise? We learned from the best, Keisha said softly. They stood there in their small kitchen, holding each other, and for just a moment Gloria felt strong enough to face whatever was coming. Whatever she decided, whatever consequences followed, at least she had this. Her children, her family, the love that had sustained them through 8 hard years since Marcus died. Finally, they broke apart. Keisha closed her laptop and gathered her textbooks. Marcus grabbed his phone and headed to the bedroom he shared with his mother, the only bedroom in the small apartment, while Keisha took the couch like she did every night. Gloria brushed her teeth and changed into old pajamas and climbed into bed beside her son, who was already scrolling through his phone in the darkness. She could see his face illuminated by the screen's glow. Mom, he said softly. Are you scared? Yes, she admitted. Terrified. But you're going to do something anyway, aren't you? You're going to try to help that little girl. Gloria stared up at the ceiling, at the water stain that had been there since they moved in, that the landlord kept promising to fix but never did. I don't know yet, baby. I truly don't know. But even as she said it, she could feel the shape of her decision forming in her mind. She could feel the weight of it settling onto her shoulders like a familiar burden. Because the truth was, she did know. She had known from the moment she heard Sophie crying in that parking lot. Some choices aren't really choices at all. They're just the thing why morning came too early and brought with it a headache that pounded behind Gloria's eyes like a hammer. She had finally fallen asleep sometime around 4, only to be jolted awake by her alarm at 5:30. For a moment she lay there in the gray pre-dawn light, her mind foggy, wondering if the events of last night had been some kind of exhausted fever dream. Then, she saw her phone on the nightstand and remembered. Sophie, the Whitmores. The $10,000 sitting in her bank account like a live grenade. Marcus was still asleep beside her, one arm flung over his face. Gloria slipped out of bed quietly and padded into the kitchen where Keisha was already up, making coffee in their ancient coffee maker that sputtered and wheezed like it might die any second. "You look awful," Keisha said by way of greeting. "Thanks, baby. I feel awful. Did you sleep at all?" "A little." Gloria accepted the cup of coffee her daughter handed her and wrapped her cold fingers around it. The warmth felt good, real, something solid to hold on to in a world that had suddenly become very uncertain. She had 2 hours before she needed to be at her morning job cleaning offices downtown. 2 hours to figure out what she was going to do about Sophie Whitmore and her billionaire family, and the growing feeling in her gut that keeping quiet about last night would be a mistake she couldn't live with. Gloria pulled out her phone and did what she probably should have done last night. She started researching. Really researching, not just skimming headlines. What she found made her blood run cold. Richard Whitmore wasn't just wealthy. He was connected in ways that made Gloria's skin crawl. Political connections that ran deep into local and state government. Business connections to corporations that shaped policy and wrote laws. Charitable foundations that gave him access to influential people and good press to cover up the darker aspects of his empire. And there were dark aspects. The articles Marcus had shown her last night were just the tip of the iceberg. Gloria found dozens more. Stories about workers injured in Whitmore construction projects who suddenly dropped their lawsuits after receiving confidential settlements. Journalists who had started investigating Whitmore's business practices and then mysteriously backed off their stories. Whistleblowers who had come forward with allegations and then disappeared from public view. One article from 2 years ago caught her attention. Former Whitmore executive claims culture of intimidation. The executive, a man named James Henderson, had filed a lawsuit alleging that he had been forced out of his position after refusing to falsify financial records. In the article, he claimed that Richard Whitmore maintained a network of what he called fixers, people whose job was to make problems disappear. Lawsuits, bad press, inconvenient witnesses. The article ended with a brief update. Henderson had withdrawn his lawsuit 3 weeks after filing it and moved out of state. No one had heard from him since. Gloria set her phone down with shaking hands. "Keisha," she said quietly, "I think I'm in over my head." Her daughter came to sit beside her at the table. "Talk to me, Mom. What did you find?" Gloria showed her the articles, watched Keisha's expression grow more and more worried as she read. When she finished, Keisha sat back and blew out a long breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay. So this guy is basically a mobster with a business degree and a better PR team. That about sums it up. And you're thinking about going up against him? About making noise about his daughter being in danger?" Gloria rubbed her face with both hands. "I don't know what I'm thinking anymore. All I know is that little girl is in trouble, and someone needs to help her. Mom, I love you. I love that you have such a good heart. But you need to think about us too. About Marcus and me. If you cross these people, they could destroy us. They could hurt us. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure you really understand what you're dealing with here." Gloria looked at her daughter, this beautiful, brilliant young woman who was working 2 part-time jobs while going to community college because they couldn't afford anything better, who was sleeping on a couch every night because they couldn't afford a bigger apartment, who had sacrificed so much of her own dreams to help keep the family afloat after her father died. "What would you do?" Gloria asked. "If you were me, what would you do?" Keisha was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me says take the money, keep your head down, and be glad Sophie has a family with resources to protect her. But the other part," she trailed off, her eyes distant. "Dad wouldn't have kept quiet. He would have found a way to help. Consequences be damned. Your father died at 48 from stress and overwork," Gloria said bitterly. "His hero complex didn't save him. No, But it made him someone worth being proud of. The words hit Gloria like a physical blow. She felt tears sting her eyes and had to look away. They sat in silence for a while, drinking their coffee, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the city was waking up. Gloria could hear traffic building on the street below, hear the sound of the bus rumbling past their building. Her phone rang, shattering the quiet. She looked at the screen, and her heart sank. Mr. Peterson from the hotel. She answered it. Hello. Ms. Matthews. Peterson's voice was clipped, professional. I need you to come in today at 9 a.m. for a meeting regarding your absence last night. Mr. Peterson, I can explain. There was an emergency. I'm sure there was. We can discuss it at 9. Don't be late. He hung up before she could respond. Gloria set her phone down and looked at Keisha. There goes my morning. I'll have to call in sick to the office cleaning job. Mom, you can't afford to lose the hotel. I know. Believe me, I know. But even as she said it, she was thinking about that $10,000. Thinking about how it would give her breathing room if she did lose the job. Thinking about how maybe that's exactly what it was meant to do. Give her room to act without fear of immediate financial consequences. Was that manipulation? Was someone anticipating her moves and trying to control them? Her phone buzzed with a text. Robert Chin again. I hope you slept well. Remember, discretion benefits everyone, especially Sophie. Gloria stared at the message for a long moment. Then, she did something that surprised herself. She called him. He answered on the first ring. Ms. Matthews. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Mr. Chun, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Is Sophie really in danger, or is this all just paranoia from rich people who aren't used to not getting their way? There was a pause. Then, may I call you back in 5 minutes from a different line? Why? Because I want to speak to you off the record, and this phone line may be monitored. 5 minutes. He hung up. Gloria looked at Keisha, who had been listening intently. This is getting weirder by the second. You think he's for real? I don't know what to think anymore. Exactly 5 minutes later, her phone rang from a different number. She answered it. Ms. Matthews. Robert Chin's voice was quieter now, more cautious. Thank you for waiting. What I'm about to tell you is not something the Whitmore family wants public, but I think you deserve to know the truth. I'm listening. 3 weeks ago, someone attempted to kidnap Sophie from her school. That much is true. What I didn't tell you last night is that we caught the person. A man named Viktor Kozlov, a Russian national with ties to organized crime. He was hired by someone to take Sophie. Gloria's blood ran cold. Hired by who? That's the terrifying part. We don't know. Kozlov wouldn't talk. He lawyered up immediately and was released on bail before we could get any information out of him. 2 days later, he disappeared. We haven't been able to locate him since. So he's still out there. Yes. And whoever hired him is still out there too. We believe it's connected to Richard Whitmore's business dealings. He's made a lot of enemies over the years. Corporate rivals who want to see him destroyed. Former partners who feel cheated. People who have been hurt by his business practices and want revenge. Has it occurred to anyone that maybe if Richard Whitmore wasn't such a bastard, his daughter wouldn't be in danger? Chun laughed, a short, bitter sound. Ms. Matthews, I appreciate your directness. And yes, that thought has occurred to many of us. But the fact remains that Sophie is an innocent child who doesn't deserve to be used as a pawn in her father's wars. So what happens now? You just keep her locked up behind private security and hope nobody gets through. We're doing everything we can. But last night showed us we have weaknesses. Amanda Whitmore's distraction, the security team's failure to keep visual contact, the fact that Sophie was able to wander so far without anyone noticing. These are problems we're addressing. By throwing money at people like me who might make noise about it. Another pause. I won't insult your intelligence by denying that's part of the calculation. But the money is also genuine gratitude. You saved that child's life last night, Ms. Matthews. If Sophie had been taken from that parking lot, we might never have seen her again. Gloria closed her eyes. What do you want from me, Mr. Chin? Why are you telling me all this? Because I think you're a good person who wants to do the right thing. And I want you to understand that keeping quiet about last night is the right thing. Not for Richard Whitmore's sake, but for Sophie's. If word gets out that she was unprotected in a public parking lot, if the people targeting her learn how easy it would be to get to her again, that child will never be safe. And if I don't keep quiet, then I can't protect you from Richard Whitmore's response. He's a man who treats problems like obstacles to be removed. I don't want you to become a problem, Ms. Matthews. I don't want to see you or your family get hurt. There it was. The threat beneath the politeness. The iron fist beneath the velvet glove. Gloria felt anger flare hot in her chest. You're asking me to participate in a cover-up to protect a little girl who wouldn't be in danger if her father wasn't a criminal. I'm asking you to consider all the angles before you make a decision that can't be unmade. Think about your own children, Ms. Matthews. Think about what happens to them if you make an enemy of the Whitmore family. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I'm trying to help you here. I'm trying to make sure everyone comes out of this situation intact. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Gloria wanted to scream. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she took a deep breath and forced herself to stay calm. I need more time. Take all the time you need. But, please, be smart about this. He hung up. Gloria set her phone down and realized her hands were shaking. She looked up to find Keisha watching her with worried eyes. He threatened us, Gloria said flatly. I figured. What are you going to do? Before Gloria could answer, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps that made both women jump. They looked at each other. It was barely 7 in the morning. Nobody knocked on their door at 7 in the morning. Keisha started to get up, but Gloria waved her back. She moved to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway. Middle-aged, professional-looking, wearing a dark suit. Not someone from their building. Not someone Gloria recognized. Who is it? Gloria called through the door. Ms. Matthews, my name is Detective Sarah Walsh. I'm with the police department. I need to speak with you about an incident last night involving a missing child. Gloria's heart was pounding. She looked back at Keisha, who had gone pale. Then, she opened the door, leaving the chain lock engaged. Through the gap, she could see Detective Walsh more clearly. She looked tired, like she'd been up all night. She held up a badge. May I come in, Ms. Matthews? This is important. Gloria hesitated, then slid the chain off and opened the door fully. Detective Walsh stepped inside, her eyes scanning the small apartment quickly, taking in everything. I apologize for the early hour, Walsh said. But I've been working all night trying to piece together what happened at Henderson's grocery last evening. The store's security guard, Dave Mitchell, called me this morning. He was concerned about what he witnessed. Gloria felt her stomach drop. Dave called you. He did. He said you found a child alone in the parking lot. A child who turned out to be Sophie Whitmore. Is that correct? Gloria nodded slowly. Yes, that's correct. And can you tell me exactly what happened? Gloria told the story again, from hearing Sophie crying to bringing her inside to the arrival of Amanda Whitmore and her security team. She left nothing out this time. The fear in Amanda's eyes. The way the security team had wanted to delete the footage. Robert Chin's phone calls and the money deposited in her account. Detective Walsh listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. When Gloria finished, Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Ms. Matthews, she said finally, I need you to understand something. The Whitmore family is currently under investigation by multiple agencies. The FBI, the State Attorney General, the SEC. They're suspected of crimes ranging from financial fraud to money laundering to bribery. And we believe someone is targeting them, possibly someone connected to their criminal activities. I know. Robert Chin told me someone tried to kidnap Sophie 3 weeks ago. Walsh's expression sharpened. He told you about Kozlov? Yes. Is it true? It's true. But here's what Chin didn't tell you. We think Victor Kozlov was working for Richard Whitmore himself. Gloria stared at her. What? We believe Whitmore staged the kidnapping attempt as a way to justify increased security measures and to gain public sympathy. He's under enormous pressure right now from our investigation. The attempted kidnapping gave him a reason to claim he's being targeted by dangerous criminals, which makes him look more like a victim than a perpetrator. Gloria's mind was reeling. But Sophie was terrified. That wasn't staged. No, I don't think Sophie knew. I think her parents are using her as a pawn in a much larger game. And last night, when Sophie actually did go missing for real, it threw a wrench in their carefully constructed narrative. That's why Amanda wanted the footage deleted. Exactly. Because it would show that Sophie was genuinely lost, that there was no kidnapper, no threat. It would undermine their whole story. Gloria sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. That poor child. She's being used by her own parents. Which is why I need your help, Ms. Matthews. Detective Walsh leaned forward, her expression intense. I need you to tell me everything. Every detail about last night. Every conversation you've had with Robert Shin or anyone else connected to the Whitmore family. Because your testimony could be crucial to our investigation. They'll destroy me, Gloria said quietly. They'll destroy my family. We can protect you. Witness protection if necessary. But the next 2 weeks became a blur of meetings, interviews, and growing paranoia that settled over Gloria like a heavy fog. Detective Walsh worked quickly, pulling Gloria into the broader investigation of the Whitmore family with an efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. Gloria gave her statement, then gave it again to federal prosecutors. She handed over her phone so they could document the text messages from Robert Shun, the mysterious notes, the deposit into her bank account. She sat through hours of questioning about every detail of that night in the parking lot, about Amanda Whitmore's demeanor, about the security team's reactions, about Sophie herself. Through it all, she tried to maintain some semblance of normal life. She kept working her 3 jobs, though she missed her meeting with Mr. Peterson at the hotel and received her 3rd and final write-up. She was fired the next day. The office cleaning job followed 2 days later when she missed a shift because of a meeting with prosecutors she couldn't skip. By the end of the first week, she was down to 1 job, cleaning houses in the suburbs, barely making enough to cover rent. But she had the $10,000. That blood money sitting in her account, keeping them afloat. The prosecutors wanted her to return it, said it could be considered evidence or even a bribe. Gloria refused. She needed that money. Her family needed it. Let the Whitmores come after her for it if they dared. They didn't. In fact, there was radio silence from the Whitmore family for those entire 2 weeks. No more phone calls from Robert Shin. No threatening messages. Nothing. That silence scared Gloria more than any threat could have. Detective Walsh tried to reassure her. The Whitmores didn't know yet that Gloria was cooperating with law enforcement. As far as they knew, she had taken the money and was keeping quiet like they expected. But eventually, when the investigation went public, when Gloria's testimony became part of the record, they would know. And then, all bets were off. We'll protect you, Walsh said over and over. That's a promise. But Gloria had lived long enough to know that promises from authority figures weren't always kept. Especially when those authority figures were up against people with billions of dollars and armies of lawyers. Keisha and Marcus took it better than Gloria expected. Her daughter was angry at first, scared for what this meant for their family. But as she learned more about the Whitmore family's crimes, about the people who had been hurt by Richard Whitmore's business practices, about the way Sophie was being used by her own parents, Keisha's anger transformed into something else. Determination. We're doing the right thing, she told Gloria one night as they sat together in the dark apartment, too worried to sleep. It's going to be hard, but we're doing the right thing. Marcus was quieter about it all, more internal with his emotions. But Gloria caught him looking at the photo of his father they kept on the mantel, and she knew what he was thinking. His dad would be proud. That thought kept Gloria going through the long days and sleepless nights. The breakthrough in the investigation came at the end of the 2nd week. Detective Walsh called Gloria early one morning, her voice tight with excitement. We found Victor Kozlov, she said. He's dead, but he left behind a safety deposit box with evidence. Documents proving Richard Whitmore hired him to stage the kidnapping attempt. Payments, instructions, everything. Gloria felt her blood run cold. He's dead? How? Car accident 2 days after he went missing. Drove off a bridge at high speed. We initially ruled it an accident, but now we're reopening it as a potential homicide. You think Whitmore had him killed? We can't prove it yet. But the timing is suspicious. Kozlov becomes a liability, and suddenly, he's dead. Gloria thought about that. Thought about a man who would stage his own daughter's kidnapping for PR purposes, who would then potentially have the staged kidnapper murdered to keep him quiet. What kind of monster did that? There's more, Walsh continued. We executed search warrants on Whitmore's offices and properties this morning. We've seized computers, files, financial records. The evidence is piling up. Money laundering, tax fraud, bribery, obstruction of justice. We're going to take him down, Gloria. We're actually going to do it. And Sophie? Walsh's voice softened. Child Protective Services is getting involved. We can't remove her from the home yet without more direct evidence of abuse or neglect, but we're building a case. Your testimony about finding her alone in that parking lot, about Amanda's negligence, it's all part of the picture. After Walsh hung up, Gloria sat at her kitchen table and cried. She cried for Sophie, for that little girl trapped in a golden cage with parents who saw her as a tool rather than a child. She cried for herself, for the quiet life she had lost the moment she heard crying in that parking lot. She cried for her children, who were about to be caught in the crossfire of a battle they never asked to be part of. When the tears finally stopped, she felt empty but also strangely lighter. The choice had been made. There was no going back now. The news broke 3 days later. Gloria was cleaning a house in the suburbs, scrubbing someone else's bathroom, when her phone started buzzing with notifications. News alerts, text messages, calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She pulled off her rubber gloves and looked at her phone. The headlines were everywhere. Billionaire Richard Whitmore arrested on federal charges. Whitmore Industries CEO faces decades in prison for fraud, money laundering, FBI. Whitmore's stage daughter's kidnapping for sympathy. Gloria's hands shook as she scrolled through the articles. Photos of Richard Whitmore being led out of his downtown office in handcuffs, his expression stony. Photos of Amanda Whitmore hiding her face from cameras as she was escorted to a police vehicle. Photos of the Whitmore mansion surrounded by FBI agents and police. And there, in several of the articles, was Gloria's name. According to court documents, a witness named Gloria Matthews found Sophie Whitmore alone in a grocery store parking lot, an incident that prosecutors say demonstrates the negligence and manipulation at the heart of the Whitmore family's criminal enterprise. Gloria's phone rang. Detective Walsh. Gloria, I know you're seeing the news. I'm sorry we couldn't give you more warning. Things moved faster than expected. Are you somewhere safe? I'm at work. Or I was at work. I don't think I can focus on cleaning right now. Go home. Pack bags for yourself and your kids. We're moving you to a safe house tonight. Is that really necessary? Yes. The Whitmores made bail an hour ago. They're out, and they know you're the key witness against them. I'm not taking any chances. Gloria felt ice in her veins. What about my jobs? My apartment? My life? We'll figure it all out. But, right now, your safety is what matters. Go home, pack, and wait for my call. I'll have officers there within the hour. Gloria left the house she'd been cleaning half-finished, grabbed her supplies, and drove home through streets that suddenly felt dangerous. Every car behind her might be following her. Every person on the sidewalk might be watching her. She had stepped into the light, and now she was exposed, vulnerable. Keisha and Marcus were already home when she arrived, both of them glued to their phones, reading about the arrests. Mom, you're all over the news, Marcus said, his eyes wide. They're talking about you on every channel. I know, baby. Listen, we need to pack. The police are moving us to a safe house tonight. For how long? Keisha asked. I don't know. As long as it takes, I guess. They worked quickly, throwing clothes and toiletries into duffel bags. Gloria grabbed the photo of Marcus Sr., some important documents, her kids' school things. Everything else would have to wait or be left behind. The police arrived exactly when Walsh promised. 2 plainclothes officers who introduced themselves as Detectives Martin and Rodriguez. They did a sweep of the apartment, checking windows and doors before loading Gloria and her kids into an unmarked car. The safe house was a modest ranch home in a suburb Gloria didn't recognize, surrounded by other identical houses that probably all looked the same inside. It was clean and impersonal, furnished with the kind of generic furniture you'd find in a budget hotel. But it was safe. That was what mattered. Detective Walsh arrived that evening with groceries and a thick folder of documents. She sat with Gloria at the kitchen table while Keisha and Marcus explored the house. The trial is going to be big, Walsh said. Media circus big. The defense is going to come after you hard. They'll try to discredit you, try to make it seem like you're lying for attention or for money. You need to be prepared for that. I know. Do you? Because it's going to be brutal, Gloria. They're going to dig into every aspect of your life. Every mistake you've ever made. Every bill you've ever been late paying. Every argument you've ever had with a neighbor. They're going to try to paint you as unreliable, as someone with a vendetta against rich people. Gloria met her eyes steadily. I'm a single mother who works 3 jobs to keep a roof over my kids' heads. I found a lost child and tried to help her. That's the truth. Let them try to twist it however they want. Walsh smiled slightly. You're tougher than you look, you know that? I've had to be. The weeks that followed were a strange kind of limbo. Gloria and her kids lived in the safe house, guarded by rotating teams of police officers. The prosecutors visited regularly, preparing Gloria for her testimony, going over her statement again and again until she could recite it in her sleep. The media attention was overwhelming. Reporters camped outside the safe house until the police chased them off. Gloria's phone number somehow leaked, and she received hundreds of calls and texts, some supportive, many hostile. People she hadn't spoken to in years called wanting to know if she'd gotten rich from selling out a powerful family. Strangers sent death threats. Keisha had to drop out of college for the semester. Marcus couldn't go to school because it wasn't safe. Their lives were on hold, suspended in this weird bubble where the only thing that mattered was the trial. But there were bright spots too. Letters of support from strangers who believed in what Gloria was doing. Anonymous donations to a fund that someone had set up to help with their expenses. Messages from other people who had been hurt by the Whitmore family, thanking Gloria for having the courage to speak up. And there was one other thing. A letter that arrived at the prosecutor's office, addressed to Gloria Matthews. Detective Walsh brought it to her personally. The envelope was expensive, cream-colored paper with no return address. Inside was a single card with a handwritten note in a child's careful printing. Dear Miss Gloria, thank you for helping me that night. I was very scared, and you were nice to me. My mommy and daddy are in trouble now, and I'm staying with my grandma and grandpa. They're nice too. I hope you're okay. I think about you a lot. Love, Sophie. Gloria held that card and cried for the 3rd time since this all began. She cried for Sophie, who was safe now with grandparents who hopefully would put her welfare first. She cried for the innocence of that note. The simple gratitude from a child who had no idea of the chaos her rescue had unleashed. And she cried because she knew, despite everything, that she had made the right choice. The trial took 3 months. It was everything Detective Walsh had warned her about, and worse. The defense attorneys were sharks in expensive suits, attacking Gloria's credibility with surgical precision. They questioned her motives. They suggested she had taken the $10,000 as payment for fabricating her testimony. They implied she was racist, that she had targeted a white family out of resentment. Gloria endured it all. She sat on that witness stand and told her truth calmly, clearly, refusing to be rattled. She explained that she had stopped because she heard a child crying, that she had helped because that's what decent people do, that she had cooperated with law enforcement because a child was being used as a pawn by her own parents. The jury believed her. Richard Whitmore was convicted on 14 counts including fraud, money laundering, bribery, and child endangerment. He was sentenced to 28 years in federal prison. Amanda Whitmore was convicted on 6 counts and sentenced to 12 years. Their appeals were denied. Whitmore Industries collapsed under the weight of the scandal. Assets were seized to pay restitution to victims. The empire Richard Whitmore had built over decades crumbled in months. And Sophie Whitmore went to live with her maternal grandparents in another state, far from the cameras and the scandal and the life her parents had built on lies and manipulation. Gloria and her children were able to return home 6 months after the trial ended. Their apartment had been sublet by the landlord, so they had to find a new place. Gloria's cleaning job in the suburbs was gone, given to someone else when she disappeared into witness protection. But they survived. The witness fund had grown to over $50,000 from donations. Gloria used part of it to pay off the last of Marcus Sr.'s medical bills. She used more to help Keisha go back to college, this time at a 4-year university with a scholarship she qualified for after her story went public. She put the rest in savings, a cushion against the next emergency. She found a new job, this time as a supervisor for a cleaning company that paid better than any of her previous 3 jobs combined. The owner had followed her story in the news and specifically sought her out. I need people with integrity, he told her. People who do the right thing even when it costs them. That's you. Life slowly returned to something like normal. The media attention faded. The death threats stopped. Gloria could walk down the street without looking over her shoulder constantly. 2 years after that rainy night in the parking lot, Gloria received another letter. This one was from Sophie's grandmother, Margaret Whitmore. In it, Margaret thanked Gloria for her courage. She explained that Sophie was thriving with her grandparents, that she was in therapy and doing well in school. She said Sophie asked about Gloria often, wondered if they would ever see each other again. "I know it's a lot to ask," Margaret wrote. "But if you're ever willing, Sophie would love to meet you. Not as the woman who testified against her parents, but as the woman who saved her life. The woman who showed her that strangers can be kind, that people do help each other. She needs that reminder, I think. She needs to believe the world has more good in it than bad." Gloria stared at that letter for a long time. Then, she wrote back. 3 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Gloria drove to a park in a neutral location halfway between her home and Margaret's. Sophie was there with her grandparents, a little taller than Gloria remembered, but with the same curly hair and big, trusting eyes. When Sophie saw Gloria, she ran to her. Not hesitantly, not scared, but with the pure joy of a child seeing someone they love. Gloria caught her and held her tight. This child who had changed everything, who had broken Gloria's life apart and forced her to build it back stronger. "I knew you'd come," Sophie whispered into Gloria's shoulder. "Grandma said you might not, but I knew you would. You're one of the good ones." Gloria laughed and cried at the same time. "You're one of the good ones too, baby. You're going to be just fine." They spent the afternoon in the park. Gloria met Margaret and her husband Thomas, who were kind people who seemed genuinely committed to giving Sophie the childhood she deserved. They talked about Sophie's life, about Gloria's life, about the strange path that had brought them all together. As the sun started to set, and it was time to go, Sophie hugged Gloria again. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Gloria looked at Margaret, who nodded with a slight smile. "Yeah, sweetie," Gloria said. "You'll see me again, whenever you want." On the drive home, Gloria thought about everything that had happened since that rainy Tuesday evening 2 years ago. She had lost jobs. She had lost her sense of security. She had been threatened and attacked and forced to uproot her entire life. But she had also gained something. A sense of herself as someone who stood up when it mattered. Someone who chose right over easy. Someone her children could be proud of. Someone she could see in the mirror without shame. Most importantly, she had saved a little girl who needed saving. And, in doing so, maybe she had saved a part of herself too. When Gloria got home, Keisha was studying at the kitchen table, and Marcus was making dinner. They had learned to cook over the past 2 years, had taken on more responsibility, had grown from teenagers into young adults who understood that life was complicated and choices mattered. "How was it?" Keisha asked, looking up from her textbook. "Good," Gloria said. "Really good. Sophie's doing well." "That's good, Mom. That's really good." Marcus brought over 3 plates of pasta, and they sat together at their small table like they had done 1,000 times before. A family that had been tested and had survived. A family that had lost things and gained things and come out the other side still together, still strong. Gloria looked at her children and felt a peace she hadn't felt in years. Not the peace of an easy life, but the peace of knowing you've lived according to your values. The peace of integrity. That night, lying in bed in her new apartment in a safer neighborhood, Gloria thought about the question she had asked herself in that parking lot 2 years ago. The question that had seemed so simple then, and had turned out to be so complicated. Should she stop to help, or keep walking to catch her bus? She had stopped. She had helped. And, yes, it had cost her in ways she couldn't have imagined. But it had also given her something priceless. The knowledge that when faced with a choice between comfort and conscience, between self-preservation and doing what was right, she had chosen right. Some moments change everything. Some decisions split your life into before and after. Some choices define who you are in ways that echo forward through all your remaining days. Gloria closed her eyes and fell asleep, content in the knowledge that she had made the right choice. Even knowing what it would cost, even knowing how hard it would be, she would make the same choice again. Because that's what decent people do. They help. They stand up. They refuse to look away. And, in the end, that's all that really matters. We need your cooperation. Gloria looked at Keisha, who was watching this exchange with wide eyes. She thought about Marcus, asleep in the other room. She thought about her jobs, her apartment, the fragile stability she had worked so hard to build over the past 8 years. And she thought about Sophie, about a little girl being used as a chess piece by parents who cared more about their own power and wealth than about her well-being. "Detective Walsh," Gloria said slowly, "if I help you, if I testify, or whatever you need me to do, what happens to Sophie? Where does she end up?" Walsh's expression softened slightly. "If Richard and Amanda Whitmore are convicted of the crimes we suspect they've committed, Sophie would likely go to family members. She has grandparents, aunts, and uncles. She wouldn't be put into foster care. And would she be safe? Safer than she is now, being used as a shield by her parents." Gloria closed her eyes. She thought about her own father, long dead now, who had taught her that doing the right thing was often the hardest thing. She thought about Marcus Sr., who had never been able to walk past injustice without trying to stop it. And she thought about the woman she wanted to be, the example she wanted to set for her children. When she opened her eyes, she had made her decision. "Okay," she said. "I'll help you. Tell me what you need. Oh, you have to do because of who you are, because of what you believe about right and wrong, because walking away would mean losing something of yourself that you could never get back." Gloria closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but her mind kept circling back to Sophie's face, to that little girl in the white dress, crying in the rain, so small and vulnerable and alone. Somewhere across the city, in a mansion Gloria couldn't even imagine, Sophie was presumably safe in her bed. But for how long? And what would happen the next time she wandered off, or the next time the security team had a moment of inattention, or the next time whoever was targeting the Whitmore family made their move? Gloria's phone lit up with one final text message. "Sleep well, Ms. Matthews. Tomorrow is a new day with new choices. Choose wisely." She didn't respond. She just turned her phone face down on the nightstand and pulled the covers up to her chin. Tomorrow she would decide. Tomorrow she would figure out what the right thing to do was, and she would find the courage to do it. Tonight, she would just be tired. Just be human. Just be a woman who had tried to help a lost child and ended up stumbling into something far bigger and more dangerous than she ever could have imagined. The wind picked up outside, rattling the old windows. Gloria listened to Marcus breathing beside her, listened to Keisha shifting on the couch in the next room, listened to the familiar sounds of her building settling for the night. And she waited for morning, knowing it would bring answers she wasn't ready for. Of her kids, and keep her head down, had somehow become part of something she didn't understand. She closed her eyes and leaned her head against the window, feeling the vibration of the car against her skull. Tomorrow she would deal with Mr. Peterson and the hotel. Tomorrow she would explain to her kids why she had come home so late. Tomorrow she would try to make sense of mysterious notes and strange text messages. But tonight, she was just too tired. The car pulled up in front of her apartment building, a rundown complex in a neighborhood where people minded their own business because getting involved in other people's drama was a good way to get hurt. Gloria paid the driver, adding a small tip she couldn't really afford, and trudged up the stairs to her second-floor unit. She could see the light on under her door. Keisha and Marcus were still awake, waiting for her. Gloria took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and turned the key in the lock. The next chapter of her life was about to begin, whether she was ready for it or not. The bus. She had missed everything because she had stopped to help a lost child, and now she was sitting in a security office waiting for Billionaire's security team to arrive, and she had no idea what was going to happen next. She closed her eyes and said another prayer, hoping that her decision to stop and help wouldn't end up costing her everything. Outside, through the small window in the security office, she could see the rain still coming down. And somewhere out there, Sophie's parents were on their way. Gloria had a feeling that when they arrived, her quiet, exhausted life was about to become very complicated indeed. Sophie's small hand found Gloria's and squeezed it gently. "Thank you for helping me," the little girl whispered. Gloria squeezed back, her heart aching. "You're welcome, baby. You're welcome." And she waited, watching the door, wondering what came next. //